Order, order. We start with questions. Secretary of State for Scotland, Graham Leadbitter.
Question number 1, Mr Speaker.
Secretary of State.
With permission, Mr Speaker, I will answer questions 1 and 7 together. The measures announced by the Chancellor at the budget will help families right across Scotland. Scrapping the two-child limit will benefit 95,000 Scottish children. We're putting more money into the pockets of 220,000 people in Scotland through increases in the national minimum wage, and the triple lock pension increase will benefit around 1 million Scottish pensioners. We're also cutting energy bills by up to £300 for those most in need.
Graham Leadbitter.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. While the Labour Westminster Government has been killing jobs, hiking energy bills and exacerbating the cost of living crisis, yesterday the SNP Scottish Government's budget cut child poverty, boosted funding for the NHS and slashed income tax for hard-working families.
Well done.
A clear majority of workers in Scotland will pay less tax than the rest of the UK. Does the Secretary of State support the action in the SNP's budget, or would he prefer the lowest earners in Scotland paid more tax, as they do under Labour?
Mr Speaker, what's the reality? The governing philosophy of the Scottish National Party is 19th century nationalism. What's the reality of what we saw yesterday? The 19th budget from John Swinney. The idea that after 18 goes they're going to get it right on a 19th go is frankly risible. We have the same record of failure with the SNP, and if people want a new direction, they'll have the chance to vote for it in May.
Liz Saville-Roberts.
Marianne Levareth, England-only projects like Northern Powerhouse Rail give Scottish Government the Barnett consequentials which they rightly choose to use on cost of living support like the Scottish Child Payment. But Wales is denied any such extra funding. His government is committed to learning lessons from HS2. So why can't Wales have the same means which would, I can assure him, allow a Plaid Cymru Welsh Government to spend to alleviate child poverty?
Well, Mr Speaker, I think 19th century nationalism is a bad prescription for Scotland, and it's also a bad prescription for Wales. The reality is we are proud of the fact that we're increasing public investment, not just in rail, as we've heard today from the Transport Secretary, but more broadly across public services in every part of these islands.
Chair of the Select Committee, Patricia Powys.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Secretary of State is aware that the Scottish Affairs Committee recently conducted an inquiry into the Thistle, the Safer Drug Consumption Room in Glasgow. I hope that this innovative facility will help to cut drug death numbers in Scotland. But does he agree with me that the Thistle on its own cannot end the drug crisis? And does he therefore further agree that a real terms cut of £1.3 million from alcohol and drug services is entirely the wrong move in yesterday's Scottish budget?
Mr Speaker, this is literally and figuratively a deadly serious issue. The reality is, as we've just heard from the SNP benches, they're claiming in the coming months that this is as good as it gets for Scotland. And yet the reality is their shameful record in Scotland has been more than 6,800 drug deaths since the SNP themselves declared a public health emergency. That, let us be clear, is the worst drug-related death rate in Europe. It is a shameful failure by the Scottish Government, and despite all of their claims about the budget yesterday, once again it was a missed opportunity to take a better approach. We have provided the resources, but alas, we have a government that is out of time, out of ideas, and is failing in terms of public health.
Christine Sullivan.
Thank you.
Actually up here because I did need to speak. Please, go.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. After 19 years of SNP government, does he agree with me that yesterday's budget reflects broken public services, decades of economic stagnation? That means for many families there's just too much month at the end of the money.
Mr Speaker, well, what's the reality after the budget that we saw from the Scottish Government yesterday? The reality after 19 SNP budgets is hundreds of thousands of us stuck on NHS waiting lists in Scotland, over 10,000 children in accommodation with no permanent home, and councils unable to afford even the most basic. Look at of what they did to local government. They don't learn, they don't understand, and they're out of time.
Andrew Bowes, Shadow Secretary of State.
Mr Speaker, one way to lessen the bite of the cost of living for hard-working Scots would be to cut their taxes, letting people keep more of their hard-earned money. Unfortunately for the Nationalists, this appears to be an anathema. Instead, they're increasing foreign aid spending, reserve to £16 million, introducing yet more tax bans, more new taxes, but nothing to incentivise people to find good, well-paying jobs. Conservatives know you cannot tax a nation into prosperity. Does the Secretary of State agree?
Why did the Conservatives deliver a decade of low growth, high inequality and high taxes when you were last in power? In fact, let's just take a moment to have a look at the Conservatives' record when they were in power. 11% rate of inflation under the Conservative government, of which the honourable member was part. Interest rates have hit the highest level in 40 years. Mortgages are up to £221 a month for families who were forced to remortgage after the mini-budget. There are many people who have interesting observations on how to run an economy. The Conservative front bench is not one of them.
Alan Gamble.
Question number 2, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary of State.
With permission, Mr. Speaker, I'll answer questions 2, 3, 6, 9, 10 and 14 together. Just last week, we launched the UK Government's £140 million Local Growth Fund, which will help to deliver economic growth to 5 Scottish regions. Scotland will also benefit from around £700 million of other local and regional project funding over the next 3 years. And in addition, as we pointed out in relation to the budget, the UK Government has provided the Scottish Government with the largest block grant in the history of devolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank the Secretary of State for the announcement of £11 million for local growth funding for Ayrshire. Ayrshire boasts internationally successful businesses in engineering, advanced manufacturing, aerospace, defence and energy. And I've been working with my excellent Ayrshire colleagues, the Ayrshire Chamber of Commerce and the Ayrshire College to ask businesses what more we can do to grow the economy. Does the Minister agree with me that we must support Ayrshire's most successful sectors and ensure this region plays its part in growing Scotland's economy?
Well, Mr. Speaker, absolutely. I welcome the work of the ambitious Ayrshire consultation and pay generous tribute to the work that my honourable friend is doing. As Trade Minister, I visited companies including XSL and GE Aerospace in Ayrshire and saw for myself the extraordinary potential for growth-driving sectors like advanced manufacturing. As part of the more than £200 million the UK Government is investing in Ayrshire, the Local Growth Fund will provide flexible, targeted support to help unlock exactly that potential.
Chris Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After years of increases to the cost of living, my Airdrie and Shorts constituents are understandably impatient for change and want to see the benefits of economic growth in their communities and in their pockets. Can he provide further detail on how this government is supporting the growth of local economies in North Lanarkshire, and what role does he see AI, advanced manufacturing and life sciences playing in that growth by helping to build supply chain resilience locally?
So, Mr. Speaker, of course North Lanarkshire has been at the heart of Scottish manufacturing for many decades. Since 2019 it's actually grown faster than the national average in Scotland due to the highly skilled workforce and ambitious local development plans. I'm delighted that large US companies like CoreWeave have recognised that potential with their £1.5 billion investment into North Lanarkshire's growing AI infrastructure. North Lanarkshire, I can assure the honourable gentleman, has a strong advocate and supporter in the UK Government. It's determined to fulfil that potential.
Liz Twist.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Buses are hugely important to our communities and to our transport network. And so it's vital that Falkirk-based Alexander Dennis Limited and its supply chain, including Delner Glass in Consett in my constituency, are supported. It's taken the SNP First Minister over a year to recognise that. Can the Secretary of State set out how he's working with other departments to ensure that jobs and the company not only survive but thrive?
Well, can I thank the honourable friend for the question, and of course I warmly welcome the decision to keep Alexander Dennis's Falkirk and Larbert sites operational, which will be a huge relief to the talented workforce, not just in these parts of Scotland, but also to the workforce in Delner Glass and other parts of the supply chain. I recently met with the President and Managing Director of Alexander Dennis, Paul Davis, to discuss their strategic plans and growth of UK bus manufacturing, and I'm also supporting the positive progress made by the Department for Transport's UK Bus Manufacturing Panel, the first of its kind, which brings together industry leaders such as Alexander Dennis with metro mayors to support manufacturing, boost regional economies and create jobs.
Mike Reader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As Chair of the International Trade and Investment APPG, I'm pleased that we are running the Power of Place campaign to encourage colleagues to highlight incredible small businesses that are exporting out of their constituency. Does the Secretary of State agree with me that this initiative and those such as Brand Scotland are invaluable for showcasing the power of Scottish products and markets across the world? And will he meet with me to explore the ways that we can improve exports out of Scotland?
So, Mr. Speaker, in my previous role as Trade Minister, I was very proud to promote world-class Scottish products, whether that's satellites or indeed whisky. Since 2024, as the Government, we've been working to extend those international trading benefits. For example, the UK-India trade agreement will boost the Scottish economy by an estimated £190 million per year. Both Brand Scotland and the Power of Place can help small businesses in Scotland and elsewhere increase their global exports. And I would want to pay generous tribute to my honourable friend, thank the International Trade and Investment APPG for its important work, and we'd be pleased to hear more from honourable friend about the work we can do together.
Stand back.
Mr. Speaker, in November I called for urgent intervention to support Forth Valley's industrial economy. Since then, a £150 million deal to protect 500 jobs at Grangemouth. £14.5 million in the budget to unlock hundreds of new jobs quicker at Grangemouth, such as those announced at Mealgie, and £9.8 million of local growth funding announced at Forth Valley College last week, despite some nationalists moaning that this money should have been sent to St Andrew's House rather than Falkirk, Clackmannanshire and Stirling. What further steps will the Secretary of State be taking to support the vast economic potential of the Forth Valley?
Secretary of State.
Well, Mr. Speaker, of course, just last week I was with my honourable friend in Falkirk announcing £9.8 million worth of funding for the Forth Valley region as part of the new local growth fund. Meanwhile, the UK Government is working hard to secure further investment for the Grangemouth site. And tomorrow, Minister McNeill will be in Scotland signing a memorandum of understanding for the Forth Green Freeport, unlocking £25 million in capital funding to support economic growth in the region. That, frankly, is the difference having a Labour government with Scots at its heart can make to economies like Falkirk.
Chris Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Secretary of State agree that yesterday's SNP budget, which meters out another round of civic vandalism to local authority budgets, demonstrates a failure to understand that economic growth is built from the ground up and requires well-funded local authorities delivering schools, infrastructure and clean, safe communities? And does he agree that Scotland needs a Labour government at Holyrood with the same ambition for growth being shown by this UK Labour government if it is to unlock its full economic potential?
Secretary of State.
Speaker, I sense that my honourable friend has forgotten more about local government financing than John Swinney will ever know. The reality is he's been writing budgets for 19 years in the Scottish Government, and at the same time Scottish local government has been pushed to the brink of failure. But look at the independent analysis from the IFS. That shows that Scottish local government and finance is set to see reductions averaging 2.1% a year in real terms, which would require each Scottish council to increase council tax by around 8% just to hold budgets constant. My question for the First Minister is the same the day after the budget as the day before. John, where's the money gone?
David Munda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Secretary of State will know that the Borderlands Inclusive Growth Deal is a very important factor in driving growth in the south of Scotland, and I'm looking forward to speaking to the Minister next week about the deal. But such deals, the importance is getting the money out the door. Over the years, a number of projects originally identified are not now going to go ahead. So does the Secretary of State agree with me that new projects should be brought on board, such as replacing the bridges at Annan, which were damaged in storms over the recent years?
Secretary of State.
So, Mr. Speaker, of course, I know from his own expertise and understanding of his constituency the challenge in relation to Annan and the fact that the bridges were swept away in the floods. I can assure the right honourable gentleman that my officials are working closely with the Borderlands Inclusive Growth Deal partners to oversee our £65 million investment in projects in that area. The balance we are endeavouring to strike is to make sure that there is effective local leadership, but he makes a powerful case that we have not seen the delivery at the pace that he would have wanted and we would have wanted in recent years, and that's why I hope next week's meeting is a constructive and useful opportunity to discuss these matters.
Dave Doogan.
Speaker, the SNP delivered yet another ambitious budget for Scotland yesterday. which saw almost £1 billion for rates relief, £5 billion for energy and climate change, and a 10% uplift for Scotland's colleges. That's the SNP that have delivered 10.5% growth since 2007 compared to the UK's 5.1%. The question isn't what will the UK government do for Scotland's economy, but what will they do to stop damaging it?
Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, through the shouting I heard the claim that the announcement yesterday in the Scottish budget helped Scottish colleges. I had the opportunity to be at Forth Valley College last week. I simply invite the honourable gentleman to talk to the principal of Forth Valley College, or indeed West College, or any of the FE colleges across Scotland. And if the honourable gentleman wants to suggest for 1 second that the uplift announced yesterday touches the sides of the 20% cut that we saw previously, then it would be an interesting perspective. Look at the numbers, don't judge it on the rhetoric, judge the cuts that his government has delivered, and then come back and perhaps apologise to the young people of Scotland.
Wendy Chamberlain.
Mr Speaker, business rates are crippling, particularly for hospitality in North East Fife, including hotels, and we know that we haven't seen the initiatives that have delivered business rate relief in Scotland as other parts of the UK. Now, the UK government may be U-turning on this issue, but would they consider a cut to VAT for hospitality so businesses across the UK can benefit?
Secretary of State.
So, Mr Speaker, my initial glance at the Scottish budget that was announced yesterday suggests that there will still be significant uplifts in 2026 in terms of business rates across Scotland. That is a direct challenge to the claims that we've heard from the Scottish Government in terms of economic growth. And so I hope that, as well as continuing to advocate and make the case to the UK Government, she and her colleagues will take the opportunity to say Scotland's high streets are being let down by the Scottish Government, as surely as Scotland's public services are also being let down.
Harriet Cross.
Getting money back in people's pockets is vital for economic growth, but today the government has signed the country up to the highest energy bills for offshore energy for the next 10 years, and bills that we'll be paying for 20 years to come. Can the Secretary of State explain how this is going to get more money back in people's pockets to spend on high streets rather than just to spend on higher bills?
Well, Mr Speaker, let's actually start with the facts. Our auction today delivers new renewable power that is cheaper to build than operate than building new gas. Let me give you the figures. Here are the key facts. The cost of building and operating new gas, £147 per megawatt hour. The strike price we agreed today, average of £91. That means the price of wind we've secured is 40% lower than the cost of building and operating new gas power plants. It's simply not true.
Jamie Stone.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Tonight, millions of people will tune in to The Traitors, which was filmed at Ardross Castle in my constituency. Really, I should have put on my Claudia Winkleman eyeliner for this one. It's brought millions of pounds and jobs to the Highlands. So can I ask the Secretary of State what plans he has to encourage the screen industry to look at locations like Ardross Castle in Scotland?
So firstly, Mr Speaker, I defer to my Cabinet colleague, the Secretary of State for Health, in terms of his expertise and knowledge when it comes to The Traitors. He made a powerful case on television that he had watched the series, and I then had to catch up subsequently. I would simply say Ardross Castle is a fantastic advert for Scotland, not simply within the castle but the scenes around it. I was talking only yesterday to my colleague, the Member of Parliament for Stirling, about the huge potential for the film industry in Scotland, and we stand ready with our colleagues in DCMS to do whatever we can to support Screen in Scotland.
Linda O'Hara.
Secretary of State talked about supporting economic growth in Scotland. Well, perhaps he should check in with the local authorities across the Highlands and Islands, who combined have received absolutely nothing from the UK Government's Local Growth Fund. Life is tough enough for our rural communities, so this decision to exclude them from the Local Growth Fund will only make things more difficult. So will he listen to the advice of the leader of Argyll and Bute Council, Councillor Jim Lynch, who desperately seeks that he rethink this allocation?
Seriously.
Mr Speaker, I understand that the SNP's grievance machine doesn't run on facts, but let me introduce a few facts into the conversation. The Highlands and Islands are benefiting from more than £300 million in investments. including £80 million to support neighbourhoods through Pride and Place, and of course the £25 million for the Inverness and Cromarty Green Freeport. I can attest to that because I visited Inverness and announced it.
Secretary of State, Mr.
Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Labour government are doing absolutely nothing to grow the Scottish economy, from the national insurance increase, family farm tax, the unemployment rights bill, to gutting the oil and gas industry. Growth halved, unemployment up, inflation up. But not total incompetence. But not only are they incompetent, Mr. Speaker, they are weak. So weak that Scottish Labour announced they wouldn't oppose the SNP's budget before they even knew what was in it. Now, we know they aren't very good at government, but you would have thought, after all these years, they might have worked out how to do opposition, wouldn't you?
Mr. Speaker, let's see whether the opposition frontbench agree with the opposition frontbench leader, because, of course, you don't need to take my word for it in terms of the complete chaos that was left by the last government. The present leader of the Conservative Party is the one who admitted they had, and I quote, no plan for growth. So we're not going to take any lectures from a party that delivered not just the Liz Truss budget, but an economy that was high in inequality and low in growth.
Andrew Bowie.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what we saw yesterday from the SNP was nothing more than the same old, tired, stale government with tired, stale gimmicks, handouts, and an addiction to punishing hard-working Scots with the highest taxes for poorer services. Nothing for growth, nothing for entrepreneurs, and nothing for businesses. But what would you expect from the separatist pressure group cosplaying as a government that is the SNP? So does the Secretary of State agree that after 19 years we need change in Scotland, and that the only party with a plan to cut tax, cut the benefit bill and support business and grow the economy is the Scottish Conservative and Unionist Party?
Secretary of State.
Unsurprisingly, no. I half agree with them, which is that Scotland frankly deserves better than a government that after 19 years is claiming to be the change that Scotland needs. The reality is, when I'm on the doorsteps in East Lothian, I ask people inclined to vote SNP a single question. Name a single area of Scottish public life that has got better over the last 19 years. We've had 2 decades of talking about independence. What do we have to show for it? This isn't the change that Scotland needs this budget. The change we need is an As Sarwar and Scottish Labour.
Susan Merritt, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to congratulate the Government on the successful 7th round of the allocation of green energy and CFD contracts, nearly 20% of which are going to Scotland. It's good to see that even amid their U-turns, a Liberal Democrat system from over a decade ago is still delivering. What discussions has the Minister had with his Cabinet colleagues to ensure the benefits are passed on to the Scottish people through skilled jobs, working to upgrade the grid, and crucially through protecting and defending our offshore infrastructure?
Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, I was last in touch with the Designated Secretary about an hour ago before Scottish Questions. I talked to him after the Cabinet and discussed these issues with him in the Cabinet. The choice, and it's a very serious question, it deserves a serious answer, the choice is not whether to build, but what to build. And our answer is clean homegrown power that we in the United Kingdom control. Our answer is that we should build new renewables because they are cheaper to build and to operate than gas.
Stephen Guthins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, can I wish the Secretary of State the best for 2026? I'm glad that he caught the traitors, because I have to say I'm so sorry to have heard the language that was being used about Scottish Labour MPs by Labour MPs in the press recently. So I wish him the best. But can he tell me the best way to improve our lives and our economy? Why is Scotland the only part of the UK where child poverty is going down?
Well, in part, child poverty is going to be falling because of the 95,000 kids that we helped by abolishing the 2-child cap. It is not a coincidence that on a single afternoon, our Chancellor of the Exchequer took the mantle from Gordon Brown as being the politician who lifted the most kids out of poverty across the UK in a single parliament. Gordon Brown had taken that mantle previously from Dennis Healey. It is not a coincidence that Labour Chancellors lift kids out of poverty. That's what we do, and we're proud of it.
Take the Secretary of State a little bit more seriously if so many Labour MPs hadn't lost the whip for backing our vote on tackling the 2-child cap. Now, the Scottish Child Payment has been described as game-changing. That's been extended to babies to get additional funding, meaning that those from deprived communities in Scotland get the best start in life anywhere in the UK in Scotland. So why on earth are the Labour Party abstaining on the budget? And just as the Prime Minister turns up, maybe the Labour Party can explain why they abstain and why they don't stand for anything.
Because, Mr. Speaker, we're not spending our time indulging in the games of the opposition. We're getting on with the serious job of government. Whether that is delivering a record package of employment rights to help raise pay, because the critical point that he failed to mention was 3/4 of the kids in poverty in our country today are in working households. That's why the Employment Rights Bill matters. That's why 220,000 people being lifted out of poverty as a consequence of increases in the minimum wage matter. We have a comprehensive approach, which is why we've got a comprehensive strategy.
On Scott Arthur.
Question number 4, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, can I firstly pay tribute to my honourable friend's very passionate advocacy for higher education in Scotland. He'll be well aware that the Scottish Government have received an additional £11 billion since the general election, money that could have been spent on Scotland's world-class universities and colleges. But as a recent Audit Scotland report shows, these institutions have been put under immense stress, with Scottish colleges suffering a 20% cut in real terms funding since 2021. It's utterly shameful.
Scott Arthur.
Mr. Speaker, Scotland's universities have been facing a funding crisis which has been many years in the making. Funding for students in Scottish universities is currently over £2,000 less than it is in England. Universities Scotland yesterday, in response to the SNP budget, made it clear that it will have little impact on this problem, as it does not adequately address the situation. No government in Europe, Mr. Speaker, cares less about the education of its young people. Will the Secretary of State or the Minister make time to visit Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh South West, to meet with the Vice-Chancellor, Richard Williams, the staff and the students to hear about the impact of this situation?
Mr. Speaker, I agree with my honourable friend that Scotland's young people have been appallingly let down, which is why it's time for a new direction. I would, of course, be delighted to meet with him and Heriot-Watt representatives to discuss Scotland's desperate need for a new direction.
Right, we now come to Prime Minister's questions. Lincoln Job.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Very well done.
Mr. Speaker, can I start by condemning, in the strongest possible terms, the sickening repression and murder of protesters in Iran? The contrast between the courage of the Iranian people and the brutality of their desperate regime has never been clearer. Mr. Speaker, we've called out this brutality face to face. We're working with allies on further sanctions and doing all we can to protect UK nationals. Mr. Speaker, time and again, under the party opposite, towns and cities across the north were failed. Today, this Labour government delivers change. A major new rail network across the north and a new northern growth strategy. That is the renewal that this country voted for. This morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I associate myself with the Prime Minister's remarks, particularly about Iran? Visiting schools in my Spelthorne constituency is one of the great joys of this job. So I was frankly appalled to hear that the Labour Member of Parliament for Bristol North East was prevented from visiting a school in his constituency because he is Jewish. This is anti-Semitism and it is happening in plain sight. With all due respect to the Prime Minister, I don't want to know how he feels about this. I want to know what he's going to do about it.
Prime Minister.
Can I start by thanking him for raising this case, because it is very serious, very concerning. And all members of Parliament should be able to visit anywhere in their constituency, schools or other places, without any fear of anti-Semitism. We do take this seriously. We're providing more funding for security and support we're putting in across the country, and we will be holding those to account who prevented this visit to this school.
Annalise Midgley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Prime Minister for his commitment to delivering the Hillsborough Law. But it has been proven that following the Manchester Arena bombings, MI5 spent 6 years misleading the public and concealing information. There was no risk to national security because it was a closed hearing. So will the Prime Minister deliver justice for those families and confirm that this government will bring forward an amendment that will make robust the duties and responsibilities of candour for all parts of the state, including individuals in the security services, so we can finally say never again?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank my honourable friend? The Hillsborough law will right wrongs of the past, changing the balance of power to ensure the state can never hide from the people it should serve. And I would like to acknowledge, Mr. Speaker, I think some of the families are in the gallery with us here today, and I will be meeting them later on this afternoon. I've always been clear the duty of candour applies to the intelligence services. I made a commitment we wouldn't water down the bill, and the amendments we put forward strengthen it. It is right that there are essential safeguards in place to protect national security, and we've got that balance right. I will meet the families and we'll outline the next steps on Monday in relation to that crucial balance.
We come to the Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Bednall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I agree with the Prime Minister's comments on Iran? Today, Irfan Soltani faces execution for protesting in Iran, and I'm sure the whole House will be united in condemning this. Our thoughts are with him and his family and the brave protesters fighting for their freedom against an evil regime. Mr. Speaker, I know the Home Secretary will be making a statement today on the West Midlands Police. The first thing that she should be announcing is the sacking of the Chief Constable. And I thank the member for West Suffolk for relentlessly pushing this issue. Mr. Speaker, can I welcome the Prime Minister's latest U-turn? I feel like I say that every week. Mandatory digital ID was a rubbish policy, and we on this side of the House are glad to see the back of it. But yesterday, the Health Secretary said the Prime Minister's New Year's resolution should be, and I quote, to try to get it right first. To try to get it right first time. Try to get it right first time. Yes, you did say that. You did say that. My question is, does he agree?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm determined to make it harder for people to work illegally in this country, and that's why there will be checks, they will be digital, and they will be mandatory. And I'll tell her what this government is doing, whether on planning, child poverty, employment rights, investing in our NHS, we're taking the right choices for Britain, and they oppose every single one of them. And she talks about U-turns and consistency. From the party that used to recognise the challenge of climate change, and now they run from it, who promised to cut immigration, but then lost control of it, who once took great pride in our diversity. Now they talk of deporting our neighbours to achieve cultural coherence. And, Mr. Speaker, on consistency, don't get me started on 5 Prime Ministers, 6 Chancellors, 8 Home Secretaries, 16 Housing Ministers. They had more positions in 14 years than the Kama Sutra. No wonder they're knackered and they left the country screwed.
Kemi Bednall.
A lot of waffle, Mr. Speaker, but it's still a U-turn. The member for Hull East has said, it's so interesting, Mr. Speaker, Labour MPs must think very carefully before defending policy decisions publicly. He said, and I quote, "This stuff leaves us looking really stupid." I'm sorry to tell him, but Labour MPs have been looking stupid for a long time. But let's look, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let's look at some other things the Prime Minister didn't get right first time, starting with the family farms tax. Some farmers were so terrified they sold their farms last year only for the Prime Minister to U-turn 2 days before Christmas. Will he apologise for the misery he's caused countless farmers?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the principle we put in place on inheritance tax is the right one. We listened, we made an asterisk. But what we're doing is turning the country around. Yes, we've changed the country. We've changed the failed approach of the last Tory government. They crashed the economy and sent mortgage rates through the roof. They left millions stuck on NHS waiting lists. They presided over the worst Parliament for living standards on record. Now we're turning that around. We're changing that. Inflation and interest rates are coming down. Waiting lists are coming down. Wages are up more in the first year of a Labour government than 10 years of the Tory government. But I understand, Mr. Speaker, that she's taking advice on change. She had Nadeem Zahawi in to ask his advice, how to change and how to save her party. Please don't tell me she listened to his accountant. The next day after the advice, he jumped ship to reform, the 23rd former Tory MP to do so. I don't know which is more pitiful, the flood of former Tory MPs deserting her sinking ship, or the Reform Party so desperate to launder any old failed Tory politician.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister doesn't need to worry about me. I'm all right. And I didn't hear an apology. I didn't hear an apology to the farmers. Has he even apologised to the member for Penrith, who stood up for farmers only to have the whip removed? This Prime Minister treats his MPs so badly, they follow his lead, and he hangs them out to dry every time. Let's turn to another area the Prime Minister has got wrong. His budget doubled business rates for thousands of pubs. So can the Prime Minister tell us, is there going to be any change to his business rates policy?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're working with the sector to ensure that they get the support that they need. I have to say, the Leader of the Opposition's newfound concern for pubs will come as a surprise to anyone who remembers the 7,000 pubs that were closed under the Tories. And as Business Secretary, she didn't say a word about it. So we support business, we also support workers, Mr. Speaker. And that's why we passed our Employment Rights Act. And on Mr. Speaker, on Monday, the Business Secretary and I went to Croydon to discuss our Employment Rights Act with workers there. They were very keen on the paternity rights and the maternity rights, which I know the Leader of the Opposition opposes. And whilst we were there at IKEA, they showed me their new prototype, the IKEA Shadow Cabinet. The trouble is, nobody wants to buy it. It's mainly constructed of old dead wood. And every time you lose a nut, it defects to reform.
Mr. Speaker, he didn't answer the question about business rates. It sounds like he doesn't know what his policy is. And this has been a farce from start to finish. On Monday, the Business Secretary said the Chancellor did not even realise the impact of her business rates policy. No surprise there. But yesterday, the Tax Office said that they did tell the government what the impact would be. So can the Prime Minister be clear? Did he understand the impact of his own policy on pubs?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're working with this sector. She hasn't explained why she said nothing about the 7,000 pubs that closed on her watch. We're doing other things on the cost of living to help people, to make sure they can get out, to spend money in pubs and hospitality, boosting the minimum wage. What did they do? They opposed it. Freezing rail fares and prescription charges. What did they do? They opposed it. £150 off energy bills. What did they do? They opposed it. She said nothing when pubs were closing, and she opposes every measure now. And she said a moment ago, I'm all right. She clearly didn't listen to the advice of Nadeem Zahawi, because what he told her, he's now made fun of it. He told her that they failed on mass migration, they failed on our armed forces, and he told her that she's leading, his words, a defunct brand the nation can no longer trust. No wonder he's joined the Tory migration to reform. Mr. Speaker, it's the second Boris wave.
Mr. Speaker, I asked him if he understood the impact of his own policy. He didn't say yes. The reason he U-turns all the time is because he is clueless. He is blowing around like a plastic bag in the wind, no sense of direction whatsoever. And let's be clear, Mr. Speaker, this mess goes beyond pubs. The whole of the hospitality industry, cafes, hotels, restaurants, they're all being clobbered by Labour's tax hikes. There is an answer to this. Conservatives would abolish business rates for small businesses on the high street. Mr. Speaker, yes, they're all chuntering. He's already agreeing with us on family farms tax. He's already agreeing with us on digital ID. Why doesn't he make it a hat trick and abolish business rates for the high street?
Mr. Speaker, they crashed the economy, and now they want to give lectures. She's wondering why nobody's listening to them. Nobody is ever going to listen to them on the economy ever again. Mr. Speaker, in 18 months, because of the decisions we've made, inflation is falling, and the Bank of England say it's coming back down to target. We've had 6 interest rate cuts in a row. Wages are up more in the first year of a Labour government than under the first 10 years of their government, and we beat the forecasts on growth for 2025. We're turning this country around after the appalling mess that they left it in.
He says no one's going to listen to us. Who's going to listen to him? The winter fuel allowance, U-turn. Waspy women, U-turn. The 2-child benefit cap, U-turn. Grooming gangs inquiry, U-turn. The family farms tax, U-turn. Digital ID, U-turn. Jury trials? U-turn. We hope so. We hope so. I think that's going to be the next one, Mr. Speaker. Week after week, these poor people sitting behind him have to defend the indefensible, only for him to U-turn a few days later. Mr. Speaker, one of his cabinet ministers told a journalist that what's happening at the moment is extraordinarily bad. Another said we've gone through a catastrophic series of missteps. Yet another minister said, we are so unpopular at the moment, I've come to the conclusion it's worth rolling the dice on a new leader. They're right, aren't they?
Mr. Speaker, here's the difference. I changed my party, and that's why we stand here with a majority Labour government. She sits there with her party that lost 2/3 of their MPs at the last election, and she's losing more every week. They're queuing up to join the member of Clacton's laundry service for disgraced Tory politicians. Meanwhile, inflation is down, wages are up, and waiting lists are down. Labour's turning the corner and changing this country for the better.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure you will agree, and I hope others across the chamber will also, that we need to recognise and to celebrate achievements. And I say this because across the country, knife crime offences is going down. And of course, more needs to be done and more should be done. But this week's figures have shown that London has had its safest year ever under the London Mayor Sadiq Khan. And in fact, homicide rate in London is the lowest ever since records began. Now, Mr. Speaker, Reform and the Conservatives repeatedly talk down our capital city. So will the Prime Minister join me in saying they are wrong, and will he applaud these achievements?
Well, she draws attention to the important work of the Mayor of London, and nobody should be talking our country down or talking London down. And she's right to say that since we came into office, the number of knife crime offences is down. But, Mr. Speaker, there is more to do. We're introducing new powers to seize knives and increasing the penalty for selling knives to under-18s. And the party opposite, what did they do? They're chuntering. They voted against those provisions. And what's obvious about London and Reform is they've got a candidate for mayor who doesn't like London, a new ex-Tory recruit who struggled to pay his taxes in this country, and a leader who spends more time in France than is his constituency.
Sir Ed Davey, leader of the Liberal Democrat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I associate myself and my party with the Prime Minister's comments on Iran? And can I encourage him to go even further on sanctions and also prescribe the IRG? Mr. Speaker, Sandra is 71. She has bladder cancer. Just after Christmas, she went into her local A&E. She had to wait 31 hours to be admitted on a plastic trolley and in a plastic chair. Last year, more than 500,000 people waited for over 12 hours in A&E to be admitted, more than any year in the history of the NHS. Mr. Speaker, this corridor care crisis was created by the Conservatives, but it's got worse under Labour. So will the Prime Minister end this scandal by taking up our plan to end all 12-hour A&E waits this year?
Prime Minister.
Can I first say through him to Sandra that that's simply not acceptable for her or for anybody else, and I'd appreciate if he passes that on to her directly. We have put record investment into the NHS so we can turn this problem around, and we are turning it around. I would say to him that he puts forward his plans for change, but he never votes for the increase in investment and the measures that are needed to actually put that into practice. You can't change things without investing in them. You can't call for change and vote against a budget that puts a record investment into the NHS.
Sir Ed Davey.
Mr. Speaker, we saw what happened to the last government when they failed to improve the NHS, and if the Prime Minister is not careful, that will happen to his. Mr. Speaker, last month I asked the Prime Minister to get a grip of South East Water, who'd left thousands of people in Royal Tunbridge Wells without water. Now it's happened again, not only in Tunbridge Wells, but in East Grinstead, Burgess Hill, Haywers Heath, and other parts of Kent and Sussex. Families, pensioners, schools, care homes, businesses without any water since Saturday. And the water company bosses involved now stand accused of misleading Parliament over their failures. Mr. Speaker, South East Water keeps failing its customers over and over again. So will the government immediately strip them of their licence?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for raising this, because the situation is clearly totally unacceptable. He will want to know that ministers have chaired daily emergency meetings to hold the company to account, to deliver on the change that's urgently needed at the moment in all the areas that he mentioned. We've also doubled the compensation rates for individuals and businesses, and we're absolutely clear the company must urgently invest in infrastructure, and we'll publish the Water White Paper in due course, but we are holding those daily meetings to hold this company to account.
Dr. Maria Timble.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm delighted by today's Northern Powerhouse rail announcement. A down payment on the north of England's future. Fulfilling Lord Blunkett's rail plan for Yorkshire also included upgrades to the Penistone Line train, the spine that connects south to West Yorkshire, coursing through 8 constituencies, serving 500,000 people. When I was growing up, my dad opened Silkstone Common Station as a Dodworth councillor. I want my legacy to be 2 trains an hour Tidball for our Penistone line. Will the Prime Minister meet with me to discuss how we can secure funding for the second phase of the Penistone Line upgrade scheme to achieve 2 services an hour?
Prime Minister.
Can I pay tribute to her as a dedicated campaigner on this and so many other issues? And I'm delighted that today we're announcing a transformation in journeys across the north. Of course, it was said and promised many times by the party opposite, but never delivered. We're taking action and delivering. We're working with Kirklees Council to prepare the business case for the first phase of upgrading the line, and I know the Transport Secretary would be happy to discuss the details of that with her.
Robin Swan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. At question time last week, the Prime Minister seemed to intimate that the Government was bringing forward amendments to the Northern Ireland Troubles Bill. Within hours of him saying that, the Irish Government's Minister for Foreign Affairs said that any significant changes must have the full agreement of both governments. So, Mr. Speaker, can I ask the Prime Minister, is he intending bringing forward amendments to a flawed Troubles Bill and give a reassurance that the Irish Government does not have a veto over legislation in this House?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for raising this and tell him I spoke to the Taoiseach in December about this, and I know he's committed to delivering on this. The new legacy unit has been established within the Garda, and I'm confident the Irish Government's other commitments will be delivered as set out in the joint framework. For the first time, information held by the Irish authorities is being shared with a reformed Legacy Commission, meaning more families and victims of terrorism getting information about what happened to their loved ones.
Glendon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the Prime Minister's leadership and our government's clear commitment to tackling child poverty, recognising that high-quality education is one of the best routes out of poverty. However, young people in one of the most deprived areas of my constituency, attending Churchill Community College, have been taught in temporary accommodation for over 16 months. Can the Prime Minister use his good offices to expedite funding from the Department for Education to support rebuilding this school? Thank you.
Prime Minister.
Can I say I'm very proud of what we're doing on child poverty, lifting 500,000 children out of poverty. The party opposite says their policy is to plunge them straight back into poverty, and they should be ashamed of that. The situation she draws my attention to is appalling. Parents and teachers are furious that the party opposite left schools literally crumbling. We invested, Mr. Speaker, £20 billion to rebuild around 800 schools, and our aim is all schools and colleges in England that aren't being fully or substantially rebuilt to be rack-free by the end of the Parliament, and I'll make sure a Minister meets with her to discuss this.
Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I visited Stepping Hill Hospital in my constituency, where I met the incredible team there, but they are working in some of the worst conditions. The staff there showed me the wards where sewage is coming up onto the floors through the drains, and they showed me the ceilings where water is dripping down out onto vital equipment. The hospital itself has a £130 million repair bill, and the Prime Minister is the man that can change this. So will he meet with me, the member for Hazel Grove and the member for Stockport constituency, so we can talk to him about this issue, get some investment in, and then get the hospital that my constituents deserve?
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank him for raising this, and he knows we inherited a terrible situation with waiting lists, performance targets missed, and hospitals like Stepping Hill left to crumble. They should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. I'm pleased the new outpatients building is open, and because of our decisions, the local trust will receive £75 million in capital funding. Progress is being made. His local trust has seen waiting lists fall by almost 3,000. The number of waits over a year is down by 67%. I will make sure he gets the meeting that he wants to discuss the details further.
Emily Darlington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If reports are correct, Elon Musk has climbed down today under pressure from this government. And let's be clear, stripping women naked without consent in real life or online is abuse. But we don't know whether to trust what X is saying today, and this isn't just happening on X. So will the Prime Minister join me and men and women across this House and our nation to say to any app and to any AI company that we will not tolerate and we will enforce any abuse of men, women or children in this country?
Can I thank her for raising this? The actions of Grok and X are disgusting and they're shameful. And frankly, the decision to then turn this into a premium service is horrific. And we're absolutely determined to take action here. We've made it clear that X has to act, and if not, Ofcom has our full backing and will introduce and are introducing legislation. Mr. Speaker, to update the House, I have been informed this morning that X is acting to ensure full compliance with UK law. If so, that is welcome, but we're not going to back down. They must act. We will take the necessary measures, we will strengthen existing laws and prepare for legislation if it needs to go further, and Ofcom will continue its independent investigation.
As someone with a personal experience of AI-generated images, the recent AI images shared on X, particularly those of children, sickens me. Yet, the leader of Reform continues to defend Elon Musk. Anyone who defends platforms linked to sexual exploitation of children forfeits any right to give lectures about protecting women and girls. What What will the Prime Minister do to stop any political party from putting tech billionaires ahead of protecting our children?
Can I thank her for raising this? And it's astonishing that Reform defend Musk on this issue. It is complete. I said the images are disgusting. Their position is disgusting on this. This is weaponising images of women and children that should never be made. And that's why we're acting. Reform refused to do anything about it. But more than that, the point she raises, they would scrap the Online Safety Act that stops children accessing content like pornography, suicide, self-harm and eating disorders. They're an absolute disgrace and know nothing about protecting children.
Can I just say, we're only on question 18. If we don't want to get MPs in, please, you're going to have to work with me. Kevin Bonavent.
Many of my constituents and Stevenage were appalled to hear Reform MPs oppose the principle of deploying British troops to maintain a peace in Ukraine. Our brilliant armed forces have defended democracy in Europe across a generation, so it is shameful that the leader of Reform opposes that today. That is not leadership, it is surrender. Does the Prime Minister agree that Labour governments always have and always will defend British interests, not those of Russian dictators or oligarchs?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is a question of values and freedom, I'm proud of the British workers in his constituency, in fact, supporting our Ukrainian allies. Ukrainian soldiers are defending European values on the front line every day. And, Mr. Speaker, in the event of a ceasefire, multinational force will carry out defence and deterrence operations and conduct training, planning, recovery and regeneration of Ukrainian forces. But this week, the leader of Reform said Russia had a casus belli. That means a justification for war in invading Ukraine. A Putin apologist using Russia's talking points.
Lewis Cocking.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The world is becoming more dangerous every single day, and the Ministry of Defence has said it needs an extra £28 billion to keep us safe. Well, I know where the Prime Minister can find it. Stop this nonsense Chagos Island surrender policy and spend that money on protecting the United Kingdom. Will the Prime Minister commit to that, or will he continue to put the interests of foreign governments and countries above our own?
Diego Garcia is a vital military base with important capabilities of our own. It's integral to our security. Our decision was welcomed by our allies, the Five Eyes, India and the United States. It was opposed by our enemies, including Russia. Now we can add the Tories to that list and Reform to that list. The Tories following Reform, Reform following Putin.
Yasmin Qureshi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to offer my condolences to the families of the 4 people who died in the rail traffic accident which occurred over the weekend in my constituency. Mr. Speaker, families in Bolton South and Walkden are already benefiting from this Labour government's action on free school meals, free breakfast clubs, 30 hours funded childcare, scrapping of the 2-child limit, taking nearly 500,000 children out of poverty. But in Bolton South and Walkden and across the country, there is a chronic shortage of social housing and genuine affordable homes. Will the Prime Minister now show the same ambition on housing and commit to a major expansion of social housing?
Prime Minister.
Can I just say that my thoughts, and I think the thoughts of the whole House, will be with all those affected by the terrible road traffic accident in her constituency over the weekend, and our thoughts with all of those so awfully impacted. On her question, we are determined to restore the dream of home ownership. That's why there's been £39 billion of investment to deliver the biggest boost in social and affordable housing in a generation. Through planning reforms, the New Homes Accelerator and New Towns, we're determined to deliver the homes that people need.
Dr. Luke Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I welcome the Prime Minister's commitment to the violence against women and girls strategy, but I and many have concerns about stigmatising young boys, men and masculinity as inherently toxic, especially when suicide is the #1 killer for young men. So is it about time that we have a minister for men and boys? Because this is about women and men, not women or men.
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for his support on what we're doing on violence against women and girls? Can I also agree with him that this isn't about women or men or boys or girls? It's about both. And that's why I was very pleased to bring forward our men's health strategy, one of the first of its sort, to deal with the challenges that young men in particular, in my view, have growing up, particularly with social media, but also to go further on the question of suicide. And I know that that's something that the whole House is prepared to work together on, and quite right too.
Caroline Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As trade envoy to New Zealand, last year I visited Eden Park in Auckland to hear their exciting plans to bring the Edinburgh tattoo to New Zealand. Well, next month that plan becomes a reality, and one of Scotland and the UK's greatest military displays will be taking place in Auckland. This spectacular event is testament to the exciting and successful trading relationship between the UK and New Zealand. Will the Prime Minister join me in congratulating and thanking everyone who's made this a reality?
Can I thank her for raising that? Because the Royal Edinburgh military tattoo is absolutely brilliant, as anybody who's seen it will attest. And I'm so pleased that it's heading to New Zealand. And I think it's another example of Scotland's unique contribution to our international image, our culture and tourism. And I think we all wish them the very best of luck in their performance. And I know it'll be very well received.
Timothy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The police fabricated intelligence to get Israelis banned from Villa Park, as demanded by Islamists. It's not an isolated case. Forces cut deals with dodgy mosques and refuse to arrest preachers who incite violence. The CPS uses the Public Order Act as an Islamic blasphemy law. In prison, governors do deals with Islamists to maintain order. And we all know about the rape gangs. So will the Prime Minister launch a review of the corruption of our criminal justice system by Islamists and the politics of communalism?
Prime Minister.
Well, I disagreed, as he knows, with the decision of the West Midlands Police, and the Home Secretary will be making a statement in relation to it today. Mr. Speaker, the Home Secretary used to have power to remove Chief Constables. That power was stripped by the 2011 Police Reform Act. The honourable member knows who was making decisions in the Home Office at the time. It was him, working for Theresa May, that stripped that power away.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and a belated Happy New Year. But for the 4.8 million leaseholders across England, it's not a Happy New Year. They're going to be receiving large bills in a matter of weeks. They've been waiting patiently for us as a new government, a government that said we were going to deliver that change, to bring forward the legislation on leasehold and commonhold. So I want to ask the Prime Minister, when will we see that legislation so that we can put those leaseholders out of their misery?
Well, can I thank her for raising this really important issue, and we are bringing forward proposals very shortly now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 35,000 children, including my constituent Clover, live with uncontrolled, life-threatening epilepsy. Those who can afford it are already benefiting from prescribed medical cannabis, yet families face endless delays, confused trials, and a Home Office process designed for criminal misuse, not healthcare. Will the Prime Minister meet with me and affected families to move paediatric medical cannabis out of Home Office control, create a pathway for proper trials and NHS access, and ensure that all children with life-threatening epilepsy get the care they deserve, regardless of their family circumstances?
Can I thank you for raising the case of Clover? NHS England and the National Institute of Health and Care Research recently agreed funding for 2 world-first clinical trials relating to the use of cannabis-based products. This could help see medicines more routinely available in the NHS, and I'll make sure that she gets the meeting that she wants with the relevant minister to discuss what else we're doing.
Helena Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The people I represent are fed up with Southern Water, from sewage to broken pipes and water outages, even on Christmas Day. In November, millions of plastic beads washed up on our beaches, and we discovered they'd come from a Southern Water treatment plant. I'm now campaigning for water companies to stop using this outdated plastic bead method and bin the beads. We're really concerned about the impact on wildlife, and we have a massive clean-up operation on our hands. Over 5,000 people have already supported my campaign with Sussex Wildlife Trust. Will the Prime Minister join me in sharing his horror at this dereliction of duty from Southern Water and calling on them to face the full force of the law for this terrible pollution incident?
Can I credit her with helping expose this scandal and working with her and everyone in her community, volunteering to clean up the beaches? That is the very best of who we are. But people are right to be furious that for far too long water companies were allowed to get away with polluting our seas and beaches. The Environment Agency are leading a full investigation, but we are more generally ending unfair bonuses for polluting water bosses, abolishing Ofwat and introducing tougher penalties, holding companies to account.
Then the best objective.
Mr. Speaker, ahead of the forthcoming consultation on local government reorganisation, last month Huntingdonshire District Council voted for option E, a Huntingdonshire Unitary Council. This was a cross-party view, and the Prime Minister's own Labour councillors voted in favour of it. There is a suspicion locally that the government favours option D, proposed by the Labour Eastern Regional Office, which would see Huntingdonshire and my constituency split in two and combined with Peterborough. Can the Prime Minister offer assurances to my constituents and those across Huntingdonshire that the decision isn't already a done deal and that the democratic will of Huntingdonshire District Council won't be overridden to satisfy an unelected Labour regional office?
Prime Minister.
There are no done deals here. We're going through the proper process.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The staff at West Herts Teaching Hospitals Trust, which operates Watford General in my constituency, have been very busy bees. They have recently won Trust of the Year and Performance Recovery at the 2025 Health Service Journal Awards. Will the Prime Minister join me in congratulating the amazing team at Watford General and thank them for all the hard work that they have done to achieve this admirable accolade? Imagine what further achievements that they will make when they have their new hospital and new facilities.
I will join him and thank the staff in his hospital, but also the NHS staff across the country who worked so hard over Christmas and New Year, which is notoriously a difficult time.
That completes Prime Minister's questions. Let the front benches change over. We now come to the first statement. I call the Secretary of State for Transport.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a statement on the government's plans for Northern Powerhouse Rail. I realise I'm not the first minister ever to talk about transforming infrastructure in the north of England. I get why people there are sick to the back teeth of Westminster politicians promising the earth and delivering absolutely nothing. Parties, whether the Tories or Reform, who lack ambition and are either incapable or unwilling of doing the hard yards of delivery. This ends today, Mr. Speaker. It's been over a decade since the then Conservative Chancellor pledged a transport system fit for a northern powerhouse. And what came of it? HS2 to Manchester and Leeds, both promised, both axed. Rail services that have let down commuters, and a railway still reliant on diesel trains and two-track Victorian infrastructure. Levelling up, the integrated rail plan, Network North, just empty slogans and even emptier pockets to pay for them. Mr. Speaker, this gulf between rhetoric and reality has consequences. An unbalanced economy doesn't just affect growth. It strikes at the heart of the fairer country we want to be. Political choices over decades now mean a 40-mile commute into Manchester is a world away from a similar journey into London. Take Liverpool, which has only 2 fast trains an hour to Manchester, where a direct rail journey to Manchester Airport takes an hour and 25 minutes when it's only 28 miles away. Or take Leeds, still the largest city in Western Europe without mass transit, with only a third of the population able to reach the city centre in 30 minutes. Mr. Speaker, we are finally consigning this sorry political legacy to the bonfire of history. Yeah. No previous government has acted as swiftly and decisively to back northern leaders. We've made the largest ever investment into local transport. We've given the go-ahead to road and rail projects across the north, and we're allocating billions of pounds in pothole funding to local leaders across this Parliament. And today, Mr. Speaker, we're going further. After years of underinvestment in the North's rail network, I am proud to announce we will deliver Northern Powerhouse Rail. Yeah. This is a generational commitment, building on the ongoing Trans-Pennine route upgrade. We will invest up to a further £45 billion to create a turn-up-and-go railway along the northern growth corridor of Liverpool, Manchester, Bradford, Leeds, Sheffield, as well as York. There will be regular services onward to Newcastle and Hull and to Chester for connections to North Wales. Make no mistake, NPR will transform how people travel. We'll end the hour-long waits if you miss your train. We'll attract more people to a railway that will be faster, more accessible and more frequent than ever before. For northerners who have long complained about being treated as second-class citizens, my message is simple. Those days are over. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, this is an ambitious long-term programme, but it is not HS2 reheated. I stood in this House last year and said we'd learnt the lessons of that infrastructure project, and I meant it. Unlike the previous government's Network North plan, which was announced without so much as a phone call to the mayors, we have been working directly with them on developing these proposals, and I'm proud to announce that every single one of those mayors is backing the plan today. Yeah. I'm clear that NPR will not be a central government vanity project. It will be rooted in northern communities. Develop them up. We'll also take the time to get this right. That starts with agreeing mature, stable designs as well as consents, all before construction. Finally, unlike HS2, this isn't about the fastest line at any cost. Northern Powerhouse Rail will be the shoulders of this nation's rail network, improving services across the north and beyond. Let me now turn to delivery, Mr. Speaker. We are making £1.1 billion available to deliver NPR over the next 4 years. This will proceed in 3 phases, sequenced so passengers experience a better railway as soon as possible. The first phase will prioritise electrification and upgrades east of the Pennines for delivery in the 2030s. That covers the Leeds-Bradford, Sheffield-Leeds and Leeds-York corridors, including the stations. Alongside NPR, we'll develop the business case for the Leamside line as part of our broader plans for the north, and I want to pay tribute to the Honourable Member for Washington and Gateshead South, who has been campaigning on this for over 20 years. Mr. Speaker, Phase 1's benefits will be clear. It means pressing forward with plans for a new station in Bradford, with funding secured to take it forward subject to business case. And it means working with local leaders on a redesigned York Station master plan. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to recognise the work carried out by Lord Blunt. It was his vision, endorsed by the White Rose mayors, which informed our plans for Phase 1, and I'm proud that Lord Blunkett is backing our plans today. Yeah. Work also starts now for the second phase, west of the Pennines, with major construction planned for the 2030s. It includes a new route and predominantly new line between Liverpool and Manchester. This will run via new stations, improving access to Manchester Airport from across the North and North Wales and to Warrington Bank Quay, with plans to deliver thousands of new homes. I have today instructed my officials to immediately resume work on the adapted hybrid bill so we can reach planning consent for the parts of the route in Manchester. These plans align with the prospectus of the Liverpool to Manchester Railway Board, and I'd like to thank all of them, including the chair of that board, the former Rail Minister Hugh Merriman, who is also backing our plans today. Mr. Speaker, the third phase, which takes us to the 2040s, will improve connectivity across the Pennines over and above the Trans-Pennine route upgrade currently underway. And I see Bradford to Manchester, Leeds to Manchester and Sheffield to Manchester as key routes we will upgrade. Mr. Speaker, if we are to secure Britain's long-term growth, we must also recognise future capacity and connectivity is needed along other major routes, such as the West Coast Main Line, and ensure that this is reflected in our decision-making now. I can therefore confirm this government's long-term aim to see a full new north-south line from Birmingham to Manchester. That's one of the reasons why we have chosen the Liverpool to Manchester route as put forward by local mayors, because it's the only route that properly preserves our ability to ultimately build a new line south to address longer-term congestion and crowding challenges on the West Coast Main Line. Again, this won't be a revival of HS2, and no decisions have been taken on the specification or timetable. In the meantime, we'll retain land the government has already purchased between the West Midlands and Crewe. This will be an incremental programme of change, and delivery will be taken forward after MPR has been built. Nevertheless, I believe laying out now our strategy is sensible, responsible and in the long-term interests of the country. Mr. Speaker, today we're announcing a second rail revolution in the very region that gave us the first. The North powered Britain's past. It can lead this country's future. This plan is a down payment on the North's potential, part of a broader growth drive to lift the region's productivity, boost living standards and add tens of billions to the UK economy. At the heart of this lies connectivity, because only by strengthening the links between our northern cities, only by bringing the pools of talent there closer together, can the region begin to rival the other major growth corridors in Europe. Mr. Speaker, too many northerners still face the choice of either staying at home and putting aspiration on hold or moving away in search of a better future. I say no more unfair choices, no more missed opportunities. Today we start delivering Northern Powerhouse Rail, and I commend this statement to the House.
May you, Shadow Minister.
Much, Mr. Speaker, and may I thank the Secretary of State for advance sight of her statement. Now, she started her statement by saying that people are sick to the back teeth of Westminster politicians promising the earth and delivering absolutely nothing, and then she did exactly that. Because on this side of the House, we know, Mr. Speaker, what the Right Honourable Lady's statement marks today. It's not a strategy for the North. It's not a genuine commitment to a £46 billion project, costed back in 2019 at £46 billion, as the current Prime Minister then promised. Instead, it's a flagrant attempt to silence her party's restless northern mayors, whilst Labour ministers who came to office with no plan to deliver on their promises butcher the budget. Let's get straight to the point here. She can bluster all she likes, but where Northern Powerhouse Rail is concerned, today we have no construction start dates, no completion dates, no published or costed route map, no sequencing, no idea who will pay, nor by how much, and no certainty at all, except it won't be what Labour promised ahead of the election. She says, Mr. Speaker, this is a generational commitment. Well, at this rate, it's going to turn out to be a multi-generational commitment. Because if the Prime Minister wanted to deliver what he actually promised in opposition, he knows he'd have another black hole of billions. Such is the uncertainty, the genuine uncertainty caused to the sector by this announcement. What we have, Mr. Speaker, is a commitment to fiddling with the paperwork without any secure investment for the actual project. Yet the Right Honourable Lady expects this House to believe that this is some sort of investment in the North. She and her ministers must be delighted that the Mayor of Greater Manchester overplayed his hand at the Labour Party conference last year. So today he feels constrained to profess loyalty to the Prime Minister, perhaps wonderment at his generosity. That's in public. We all know what he's doing in private. Does the Right Honourable Lady take this House and her own backbenchers and the voting public for fools? Whether she does or not, the Prime Minister certainly does. He wrote in the Yorkshire Post with some gall that this amountment, and I quote, is a serious plan backed by billions of pounds of investment, when we know from this statement that it is not. Can the Right Honourable Lady confirm how a £45 billion cap on a scheme that was costed way more expensive than that back in 2019 can possibly deliver projects which are already estimated to be so much more than that value? What guarantees exist that schemes will be completed in full, and when this House will be finally given the detail that it deserves? Because perhaps she ought to remind the Prime Minister what he told the Yorkshire Post back in 2019, promising to deliver Northern Powerhouse in full. Today's announcement offers nothing better than dither, delay, and a further decade away from spades in the ground. How can she and the Prime Minister pretend that this is the delivery of Northern Powerhouse Rail when it is anything but that? By their own admission, no budget has been set out. The cap in funding gives no confidence that funding which will have to be raised from the private sector or through local taxes is in place. So can she tell the House which local taxes will have to rise and by how much to fill the gap created by her own £45 billion cap? I know she, like me, cares deeply about ensuring Parliament is told the whole truth. But perhaps on this occasion it is the Prime Minister himself who should be lauded today when he said, time and again, that the cuts and downgrades this government has foreshadowed today represent nothing more than, and I quote, a betrayal of the North. So I ask the Secretary of State, isn't it the case that this is a strategy from a desperate government to make a cut appear an investment, an attempt to save face with the British public, to spend months and months hiding their mealy-mouthed plans, only to reveal them with bluster and misplaced confidence, is a sad indictment of a sorry government. To come to this House today without dates, budgets and a plan for how to raise shortfalls after the cap is frankly pitiful. To spin this as a plan for the future is a disgrace, and one of which she should be ashamed. She cannot escape the facts that her party came to power with no plan on how to deliver on their promises, and their complete ineptitude at managing the public finances means they're now having to U-turn even on those promises. If the Metro mayors and backbenchers had any backbone, then rather than genitalously jostling for position under the next Labour leader, today they'd be acknowledging the truth in what I've said and calling out this betrayal.
Secretary of State.
Very underwhelming. Mr. Speaker, I can't believe what I've heard, to be honest. I mean, I know he's standing in for the Shadow Transport Secretary today, but really, I hoped he would have done a little bit better than that. He talks about no budget being set out. We have set out £1.1 billion to be spent over the next 4 years, far more than his government ever spent on Northern Powerhouse Rail in the 14 years they had an opportunity to make improvements to the rail network in the north of England. If that's the way they approach basic maths when we're spending over £1 billion, I can see why the public booted them out of office at the last election. Mr. Speaker, we are working in collaboration with local mayors, and we have agreed with local mayors that where they see opportunity to boost economic growth beyond the core scope of the Northern Powerhouse Rail proposals, we will work with them to agree local contributions so the full benefits of this investment can be realised. Mr. Speaker, more generally though, I think this was a classic case of the honourable gentleman writing the questions without listening to the announcement. We are delivering Northern Powerhouse Rail in full. We have set out our plans in full, we are funding NPR in full, and we will deliver it. He mentions the previous government and their aspirations. Let me remind the House of what that actually amounted to. The plan that got the location of Manchester wrong on a map. The plan that promised new tram lines that had already been built. The plan that diverted funding away from the north to fix potholes in the south. That plan was not worth the paper it was written on, and so we'll take no lessons on this from the party opposite. But if he won't listen to me, maybe he'll listen to the people who run our great city regions in the north. The mayors of West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire and North Yorkshire said we welcome the government's once-in-a-generation commitment to improving transport across the north. The mayor of the Liverpool City region said after more than a decade of dither, delay and broken promises, this is the start of a new era with a genuinely strategic approach and a government finally backing Northern Powerhouse Rail in full. The mayor of Greater Manchester said finally, we have a government with an ambitious vision for the north and a firm commitment to Northern Powerhouse Rail. And let me quote one more person. NPR is a project I've long championed, so it is excellent to see the government backing it in full. Not the words of a Labour mayor, not the words of a Labour minister, but the words of former Conservative Rail Minister Hugh Merriman. Mr. Speaker, our plans are backed by the mayors, they're backed by business leaders, they're backed by their own former Rail Minister. That tells you everything you need to know about who is delivering for the North and who never did.
Ruth Cadbury, Chair of the Select Committee.
Mr. Speaker, this is another hugely welcome transport statement from the Secretary of State for Transport and her team. Today's announcement promises levels of rail connectivity for communities from Merseyside to Tyneside that will compare with that of the London travel to work area. The question I and many have today is when will we have more details about the timescales and the potential funding sources for phase 1 and 2, and most importantly phase 3 of today's statement. Phase 3 being linking Birmingham with the Northern Powerhouse Rail network, so desperately needed, so cruelly and ridiculously cancelled by the party opposite when they were in government, so that we can relieve the pressure on the West Coast Main Line and link up London and Birmingham with the cities of the north.
The Chair of the Transport Select Committee is completely right to say that the proposals that we're announcing today will deliver rail services for the north that are comparable to those in London and the South East. A turn-up-and-go railway where you can go to the station, not having to check the timetable before you go, because you know that a train will be there within a reasonable time frame. And you know that if you miss your train, you're not going to have to wait for an hour to get the next one. She's right to press me on timing about when more information is going to become available about the different phases. The first phase of improvement relates to the corridors into Leeds from Sheffield, Bradford and York. We will be progressing with urgency on those, as well as the plans for the new line between Manchester and Liverpool. Phase 3 of NPR relates to further cross-Transpennine improvements beyond the Transpennine route upgrade. And we will be saying more in due course about our plans for Birmingham to Manchester, noting that the delivery of that will come after MPR has been completed.
Tim Farron, Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I have read the statement and indeed listened to her carefully, and I'm very grateful for early sight of it. We are massive supporters of Northern Powerhouse Rail on these benches. But we actually have, all we have really concrete in this statement, is just over £1 billion, so we can spend the next 4 years planning to maybe come up with another plan. So the failure of the previous Conservative government to deliver infrastructure projects like this and HS2 was utterly depressing and embarrassing, but I hope she will understand the scepticism of many of us in the North, not just on these benches, who fear this government is being worryingly pedestrian too, lacking in the determination to deliver vital projects like these. High-speed rail for the North delivered at snail's pace if we are lucky. So my questions are, would I be right to surmise from her announcement that while we will see upgrades in the 2030s, which is a long time away still, we won't actually see trains running on the new track much before 2045? What confidence can she give us that we won't see even more slippage in that timetable? What guarantees can she give us that we won't now see a repeat of the Conservatives' approach of stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, cancel? And finally, of course, could I remind the Minister that the north of England does not stop at the M62? And while we are proud of our cities of Leeds and Manchester and Liverpool, the biggest visitor destination in the north of England is actually Cumbria. Yet there is not a single mention of either Cumbria or Lancashire in this statement. Nothing on the vital upgrades, needed to the West Coast Main Line north of Warrington, especially in the light of the recent derailment at Shap. And we still continue to wait for the government to invest in the all-important Lakes Line to Windermere, where a simple passing loop at Burneside would double the line's capacity at a fraction of the cost of Northern Powerhouse Rail, directly connecting Manchester Airport to the heart of the English Lake District. Might the Minister agree to meet with me to discuss these vital projects to help prove that this government's concern for the North includes the actual North?
Mr Speaker, I can assure the honourable gentleman that we are getting on with this and we will see these improvements delivered. I don't share his cynicism that we will spend the next 4 years simply coming up with a plan. The £1.1 billion that has been allocated is for land acquisitions, it's for early preparatory works on the Yorkshire schemes. We will see delivery in the 2030s and passengers seeing benefits of some of those schemes. But what I won't do is make the same mistakes as the last government when it came to HS2, who let contracts before the scope of schemes had been finalised, essentially a free meal ticket for building contractors. We will take the time to do this properly, spend taxpayer money wisely. Of course, I want to see the delivery of rail infrastructure speeded up, but I also want to make sure that every single penny of money that this government spends is well spent. He asks about whether I can reassure him about the stop-start nature of plans being drawn up and then delivered. We have taken our time to come up with a credible, sequenced, prioritised programme of improvements in stark contrast to the previous government, and I can assure him that this is a plan for the whole of the north of England. And I'd also gently remind him when it comes to Cumbria and our government's commitment, over £13 million investment from the Department for Transport in Carlisle Station, Cumberland with an £18 million multi-year bus funding deal, Borders Rail Viability Study £10 million. So he should remember that we are investing across the north of England in improving public transport for the travelling public.
Lucy Powell.
Speaker, and it's nice to speak from the backbenches for the first time in a very, very long time. Can I strongly welcome this commitment to Northern Powerhouse Rail and the vision that underpins it? This will be game-changing for the North. After decades of underinvestment, poor connectivity and years of indecision by the party opposite, this really is going to transform lives. But does she agree with me that in order to ensure that long-term reliability, the capacity for generations to come. We have to solve the problem of Manchester Piccadilly Station finally having through capacity in an underground station, which will truly unlock the connectivity between Liverpool, Leeds or Sheffield and Manchester Airport, and unlock the real potential of the whole regions across the north.
I'm grateful to my right honourable friend for her contribution, and she talks about Manchester Piccadilly, and I'm reminded of the words of Mayor Andy Burnham, who has said to me that he sees the potential for Manchester Piccadilly as being a King's Cross for the north. I agree with her that we need to resolve the issue of throughput through that station, and I will be working very closely with the Mayor on plans for that station to ensure that we can unlock the regeneration that we are all united in wanting to see in the heart of the great city of Manchester.
Robbie Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've spent years fighting to ensure that Bradford is at the heart of the North's rail network, and therefore I very much welcome today's announcement. But after decades of empty promises for the North from Whitehall, my constituents also need clarity. Secretary of State, we have seen 13 U-turns in 18 months from this government, including the West Yorkshire tram network. So I ask the Secretary of State, how much will be specifically spent on Bradford Station project, and when will the Bradford Station project be completed? Because with 4 general elections, at least 4 general elections between now and 2045, which is the period of time that this statement relates to, my constituents and I are worried that this simply will be another future U-turn in the future.
I can wholeheartedly assure him that this is good news for Bradford Station. I've been working very closely with Councillor Susan Hinchcliffe, the leader of Bradford Council, and of course Mayor Tracy Brabing, the Mayor for West Yorkshire. We will be pressing forward with the work that's already underway with the Council on a business case for Bradford Station, and I'm very conscious that in doing so we'll be putting a young, dynamic city of 500,000 people at the heart of the Northern Rail network. We expect to reach decisions on the station by summer of this year, and we have made funding available to then move forward into detailed design subject to the conclusions of that business case.
Mike Kay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. February will represent the 25th anniversary of the opening of runway 2 at Manchester Airport in my constituency. With capacity for 60 million passengers, this announcement will finally allow it to achieve its full potential. Does the Secretary of State not agree?
I wholeheartedly agree with my good friend, and the selection of the route between Liverpool and Manchester was to a large degree determined by the importance of providing better connectivity to Manchester Airport, not just for people in the northwest, but also those travelling across the Pennines from other parts of the north of England. It has the potential to be a real generator of economic output, and I look forward to working with him further on the proposals, given how dear I know that airport is to him and his constituents.
Tom Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I completely disagree with the Tory spokesperson's comments about the betrayal of the North from this Labour government. Whilst I don't think this plan's by any means perfect, it's a damn sight better than what we saw from the last government. The last week's transport oral questions, I pressed the Minister about the improvements to the York Area Capacity Scheme and was told that it was not ruled out. But I was surprised to see that in the statement and the documents circulated today, there was no mention of that York Area Capacity Scheme, which would relieve pressure and congestion at Skelton Junction, which would improve rail network and connectivity across the north. So will the Secretary of State rule out the cancellation of the Skelton Junction improvements, and will she commit to making sure that they are part of this scheme going forward, and why they weren't in this document today?
Can I say to the honourable gentleman that in the announcement today, we are ruling things in. We are not excluding things from funding through other funding sources. We will be setting out in the normal way future rail network enhancement programme funding, for example, and so I'm happy to continue the conversation with him about what further benefits we can bring to the York area. The benefits of NPR in particular we'll be working with David Skaith, the Mayor of Yorkshire and North Yorkshire, on the master plan for York Station and the massive brownfield regeneration opportunity, one of the largest in Europe, that lies directly next to that station.
I want to help everybody. Those who have actually got involvement in this are the ones I really do want to get in. We've got 3 statements on, so hopefully we can get, because I really know it matters, especially to the north, we've got to get the people in. So please, if we can help each other, it'd be really useful. Jim McMahon.
Speaker, this is welcome. The north of England has been held back for far too long, with the people and its economy not being allowed to realise our full potential. And so too is a commitment to properly review the Manchester Piccadilly Underground alongside the Mayor of Greater Manchester. Without this, it leaves one route in and one route out, with trains forced to turn back onto the network, slower, second rate, and it's not something the North can support. But can I ask for more details? Firstly, on the funding of the Manchester Airport local contribution, to ensure that it's both fair and at a level that can be fairly raised locally. And secondly, on the timing of the Birmingham to Manchester line, can we have a clearer idea of timescales from the dispatch box?
I can assure my honourable friend that we will be having detailed conversations with local partners, including Manchester Airport, and we will ensure that any contribution is fair and locally agreed. It is important that organisations that will benefit directly from the improvement of rail links make a contribution, and I look forward to those discussions happening in the coming months and years. He asked about timing for the Manchester to Birmingham element of the route. I have been clear that the priority for investment are the 3 stages of the Northern Powerhouse Rail scheme, and so the improvements to Birmingham to Manchester would come after these schemes have completed construction, so into the 2040s.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Sadly, we've heard all this before, and yes, I admit that some of the ambitious proposals of the last government haven't come to fruition. But the Labour government are now... The Labour government are now finding that it's very easy to criticise. I don't recall that the criticism coming from Labour benches when we were in power was, don't worry, by 2050 we can solve the problem. Right. It was that you had immediate answers. Could I suggest to the Secretary of State that instead of these ambitious proposals, she actually announced something that she could deliver? If she shook her petty cash tin, she could find the few £1,000s it would need to extend the King's Cross to Lincoln service through to Grimsby and Cleethorpes and boost the local economy there.
Come on, you're making a statement, not even a question in there. Secretary of State, I'm sure you could just rustle up a quick answer.
I will ask the Rail Minister to write to the Honourable Gentleman and update him on the particular scheme that he is advocating.
Sharon Hodgson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Can I welcome this fantastic announcement today, particularly regarding the Leenside line, which runs from Keelow and Gateshead through my constituency in Washington and on to Ferry Hill in County Durham, as well as being the line that will finally bring the Metro to Washington, which I have campaigned on since I first stood to be an MP back in 2005. This investment will be transformative for my constituents and the whole North East. And so although we are still a little way off spades in the ground, does the Minister agree with me that this truly is the difference that a Labour government, together with Kim McGuinness, our Labour North East Mayor, makes?
Can I just pay tribute once again to the long campaigning that my honourable friend has done for the Leenside line. I recall her excitement when we announced the extension of the Tyne-and-Wear Metro to Washington as part of the spending review, and I look forward to working with her further on the work we will be doing to look at the business case for the reopening of the Leenside line that I know closed many decades ago.
Lisa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Safe, reliable and affordable railways are vital for economic growth in communities like mine, so I welcome the Secretary of State's statement today, because we haven't seen that investment in our northern communities for too long. For too long, our infrastructure has been neglected, and as a result, our northern communities haven't been able to fulfil their potential. I want to build on what some Greater Manchester colleagues have been asking about Manchester Piccadilly and some of the enabling work around Ardwick and around Ashbury's that would unlock improving services to communities like mine, so on the Rose Hill line, or maybe even tram train to Marple. How can the Secretary of State ensure that communities like mine can feed in so we make this project reach its full potential, so it gets a 10 out of 10 rather than a mediocre meh?
One of the reasons we've taken our time to make sure that we're working with the local mayors is so that we can properly ensure that the improvements to intercity connections that will be delivered through MPR can be integrated with local improvements as well. Mayors in the north of England have had a multi-billion-pound funding settlement through Transport for City Regions, and really to unlock the regeneration potential in many of the towns and cities that we know have untapped potential, we need to make sure we get that integration right.
Imran Hussain.
Mr. Speaker, and I strongly welcome this statement which recognises that Bradford, one of the largest and youngest cities, cannot be left behind any longer. I, along with my colleagues, the Honourable Member for Bradford South, Madam Deputy Speaker, and the Leader of Bradford Council, have long campaigned for a new station and better connectivity for over a decade. But what we cannot have, Mr. Speaker, is Bradford to wait another 2 decades. So can the Secretary of State confirm that the new station and the connectivity will be part of phase 1 of this programme?
I know he has championed the station in Bradford enormously over recent years, and I can assure him that we will press forward with the work already underway with the Council on a business case for the station, and as I said, to reach decisions by the summer of this year. And we have made funding available to then move forward into detailed design pending those decisions.
Sarah Poacher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a North West MP, I of course welcome all efforts to improve connectivity across the north for my constituents of Runcorn and Helsby, but the devil is always in the detail. And I've looked at the Liverpool to Manchester proposals, and they're actually 20 minutes slower than what currently exists now. And also the Secretary of State talks about improving accessibility to Manchester Airport, but this link actually stops a mile outside of the airport, and you have to get a bus into the airport, so it actually doesn't even go to the airport. Would the Secretary of State assure the House that she will review the points that I've just made? Thank you.
I'm interested to hear the Honourable Lady's contribution, Madam Deputy Speaker. She claims that she is supportive of anything that improves the public transport network in the north of England, and yet the Reform Party in September of last year came out in clear objection to the Northern Powerhouse rail scheme, basically telling the public that they should just accept their lot and be grateful. So I look forward to hearing from her colleagues in future about whether they have reversed their position on Northern Powerhouse rail and finally seen the light.
Graham Stringer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I appreciate the way the Secretary of State introduced this, recognising the lack of investment there has been in the north of England. But it isn't even as though there hasn't been jam to go around. At the same time, there has been almost zero new investment in the north of England. We've had Javelin trains, the Jubilee line extension, Thameslink now, the Elizabeth line, and all the expenditure on HS2 in the south of England. So, given all that money has weighed down the south of England, and the crucial part of this scheme, which I pay tribute to the Secretary of State for recognising, of the underground station at Piccadilly, does she think it's fair that local contributions will be expected for that scheme when most of the other schemes have been paid out of direct taxation? Why should the north not be treated the same way that the south is being served? Is it fair that taxpayers, local taxpayers, have to pay for what is part of the national infrastructure?
I do agree with the honourable gentleman that the public in the north of England have had to put up with a second-rate transport system for far too long. We're determined to right that historic wrong, invest in the necessary upgrades and get spades in the ground. I would observe that when it came to the delivery of the Elizabeth Line and Crossrail, there was a local contribution through a business rates retention scheme. And indeed, if you look at other investments in the capital, there's been enterprise zones, land value capture, and those are some of the ideas we would like to discuss with Northern Mayors.
And David.
Our Madam Dirprwy Llefarydd. Today's announcement directly affects Wales, given that the Northern Powerhouse Rail is a project that Wales is footing the bill for, along with HS2 and the Oxford-Cambridge Rail. Although I have to say I'm delighted for my northern friends that they're getting this. The price tag now owed to Wales adds up to around £6 billion, yet the government expects us to be satisfied with the £445 million over 10 years that we're having in Wales instead. So how much longer does the Secretary of State think that this farce can go on? Isn't it time that rail was devolved so funding can be directed back towards the people of Wales instead of any other project which is classified as an England-Wales?
The £445 million investment that was announced at the spending review is historic, and we do recognise that there has been underinvestment in Welsh infrastructure. This is really significant investment. It will deliver new stations, faster journeys and better services for passengers, as well as connecting people to jobs and driving economic growth.
Hi, Bets.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Could I first of all thank the Secretary of State for the improvements announced to the Sheffield-Leeds line and some of the improvements to Sheffield-Manchester, though, as my right honourable friend's already said, we need a through route to Manchester Airport as well. In particular, I want to ask her about the tram-train project, which she and Oliver Cobbard have committed to doing the business case at work on. My honourable friend for Penistone Stocksbridge has certainly fought for this as well. Could I say to her, Germany's been running tram trains for 40 years. We've had one pilot scheme in this country between Sheffield and Rotherham which has worked as a success. Can she now see the development of tram trains generating growth, housing and jobs in Sheffield as a precursor to rolling tram trains out across the country, which will be beneficial to a lot more areas?
I'm grateful to my right honourable friend for that contribution, and he and I have spoken about this issue in recent months. I've also had more recent conversations with the Mayor of South Yorkshire about his aspirations around tram train, and I look forward to working with him closely to make sure that we properly integrate the benefits that are going to be brought through Northern Powerhouse Rail with schemes that he wants to see promoted in the South Yorkshire Combined Authority area.
Bill Esterson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituents stand to benefit enormously from the improvements in capacity and connectivity which the Secretary of State announced both to Manchester Airport and indeed to Birmingham. But does she agree that one of the big benefits here, and she talked about growth in her statement, is the impact on reducing congestion on our roads and indeed the pollution it produces? That is massively important, both whether it's to MPR or to the Birmingham to Manchester and, I would say, Liverpool part of the link in the northwest. And the big difference, it seems to me, between what she announced, or one of the big differences, is that she set out an outline plan. We never had that in the multiple dozens of announcements we had from the party opposite starting in 2014.
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for his question, and he's entirely right that a reliable, affordable, frequent public transport service, including that new rail line between Liverpool and Manchester, will enable and encourage more people to leave the car at home and make those journeys in a more sustainable way. I mean, it strikes me as ludicrous that at the moment it takes an hour and 25 minutes to get a direct train from Liverpool to Manchester Airport for a journey of less than 30 miles, when you can get from Paddington to Reading in 22 minutes, which is a journey of similar length.
Mark Sewards.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
As chair of the Yorkshire and North Lincolnshire APPG, I absolutely welcome that Phase 1 of the Northern Powerhouse Rail project prioritises Yorkshire. It will absolutely generate growth and opportunities for people in my region, and it's something that members of the APPG on both sides of the House have long campaigned for. But with my city, Leeds, in mind, can I ask when my residents will benefit from this Phase 1 investment? And can I also ask the Secretary of State if she agrees with me that we should accelerate the delivery of the West Yorkshire Tram project so that my constituents can benefit both from better railways and a mass transit project?
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman, and I should just say that what we've announced today in terms of improvements for Leeds and the surrounding area is additional to the existing improvement plans for Leeds Station. The government is obviously looking at Leeds South Bank as a potential location for a new town in an existing city, and I'm very aware that Leeds is now known as the Northern Square Mile, given the attractiveness of that city to financial services. I am working closely with Mayor Tracy Brabin to ensure that we deliver the mass transit system, because I think Leeds is the largest city in Western Europe not to have a mass transit system, which we've got to put right.
Alex Serval.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I want to warmly welcome the news that we're finally going to get Northern Powerhouse Rail today. The fact that we're starting in Yorkshire is historic. The world's longest continuing railway, Middleton Railway, is operated since 1758. It will be just metres from the lines that will be improved. Can I ask, that railway helped kick-start the Industrial Revolution. This could kick-start a new revolution for the north of England. Is she working with MHCLG to look at housing growth, to look at jobs growth, to look at maximising the benefits of Northern Powerhouse Rail in the way that our Victorian forebears did?
Very much so, and if we were able to bring productivity in the north up to the average levels of productivity, we would see the UK's economy growing by about £40 billion a year. This is not just about trains, it's not just about tracks, it's about leveraging in private investment, new jobs, new homes, city centre regeneration, breathing life back into our town centres as well. And I look forward to working with him further on it.
Joe White.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As the Secretary of State has just said, this is the evidence that we now have that cross-government working is in action. The Treasury, the Department of Transport and MCHLG, setting the case, establishing confidence that the North is open for business, the place to invest, to build and to live. We have a government that has the self-assurance to shift away from the well-trodden path where growth is traditionally centred on London and the South. The record is clear. The Tories underinvested in the North time and time again, and Reform have already opposed everything that Northern Powerhouse Rail stands for. Their betrayal of the North must never be forgotten. Order, that was so voluble. Please, Joe White. Withdraw. Well, I would welcome the member to withdraw that.
Yeah, I do withdraw that. I'm sorry. I apologise.
Joe White. No. Thank you. Order. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Their betrayal of the North must never be forgotten.
Hear, hear.
For this to work, however, we need our council leaders and mayors to play their part. For constituencies like Bassetlaw, Bolsover, North East Derbyshire and Chesterfield, our East Midlands mayor must be part of the dialogue and the investment strategy for transport planning and connectivity. We all want to open our doors to businesses on the back of this, and will the Secretary of State ensure that our East Midlands Mayor, Claire Ward, has a place around the table?
I work closely with Claire Ward and have enormous respect for the work that she's doing in the East Midlands. I recognise the point too that she was making about the position of the Reform Party on investment in rail in the north of England. I know she had to deal with some chuntering from the other side, and I just observe that perhaps the honourable member for Runcorn might like to just Google what one of her colleagues said back in September, when he was absolutely unequivocal that he would not back Northern Powerhouse Rail and that he would not back better public transport in the north. This Labour government has exactly the opposite ambition.
Anna Dixon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As a member of the Public Accounts Committee who did an inquiry into HS2, I really have to warmly welcome the Secretary of State taking such a disciplined and clear approach to making sure this delivers and delivers on time and value for money, as the TransPennine upgrade has. But as a Bradford MP, I would like, with others I'm sure, Madam Deputy Speaker, to join in thanking the Secretary of State for backing Northern Powerhouse Rail, but particularly for backing Bradford. The new station and the improved link to Leeds will make a massive difference, not only to the city of Bradford, but to the wider district. So will the Secretary of State assure me that these transport investments by this Labour government will deliver not only better connectivity, but also jobs and new homes to the whole of the Bradford district?
Yeah.
I'd like to say to my honourable friend that one of the things we have to achieve through Northern Powerhouse Rail is making sure that young people who are growing up in towns and smaller cities around the big conurbations can easily access the high quality jobs in places like Leeds, places like Manchester and Newcastle. So I can assure her that the approach of this government is one that is about investing in skills, it's about investing in transport, and it's about investing in opportunities for the future.
Paul War. Lawrence Turner.
Thanks very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. A little over 2 years has passed since the last Prime Minister chaotically took the axe to HS2 north and east of Birmingham, and the Mayor at the time, Andy Street, failed the test of leadership and failed to stand up for our region. Now, there is an obvious link between the east-west connections that she's been talking about today and the south to north connections along the West Coast main line. So will she meet and her ministers engage with West Midlands MPs about the capacity issues she has set out, and can we not lose sight of the importance of the West Midlands to East Midlands connection, which is as slow as the connections in the north?
I'd be very happy to meet with him and colleagues to discuss this matter further. I'd also like to pay tribute to the work that Mayor Richard Parker has done in the West Midlands alongside Claire Ward in the East Midlands for working collaboratively with us to make sure that we can not only improve intercity connections, but also those connections that are so important within big cities as well.
Marie Tidwell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the Secretary of State's announcement today confirming the biggest investment in rail connectivity in a generation, including £7.5 million for South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority to kickstart plans to extend the South Yorkshire Supertram, including to look at a tram train extension to Stocksbridge via Outerbridge, Warncliffe Side and Deepcar in my constituency. Does my right honourable friend agree that this tram train extension will build on the government's commitment today to finally give Yorkshire the transport network our communities deserve?
We are committed to giving everyone in Yorkshire the transport networks they deserve. As I said in response to my honourable friend, the member for Sheffield, we do want to work with Mayor Oliver Coppard to explore the potential of tram train further. I know she has been a fearsome advocate as well for the Penistone line in her constituency, and there's further engagement going on with Kirklees Council on that issue as well.
Abdissam Mohammed.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I also, like my Sheffield colleagues, strongly welcome the government commitment to upgrading our Sheffield station and putting faster and more frequent trains in place to Leeds and Manchester. It will increase our city centre regeneration and will be of strong benefit to our universities and students who commute into the city. Will the Minister meet with me and other South Yorkshire MPs to discuss timescales and ensure that our infrastructure and plans match the economic ambitions for growth and regeneration in Sheffield?
I will certainly ask the Rail Minister to meet with her and colleagues, and I do think that 2 fast services an hour between the key cities of Leeds and Sheffield is simply not good enough. We're committed to improving those services and to providing the capacity that's required at Sheffield Station. I look forward to discussing it further.
Nav Mishra.
Deputy Speaker, this announcement is excellent news for northern towns and cities. Manchester Airport is a large employer in my constituency, and sadly since COVID we lost the direct connectivity from Stockport Station into Manchester Airport. So I think it's important to restore timetables to some of the timetables to pre-COVID time. Can I also encourage the Secretary of State to look at the Access for All scheme, which unfortunately is far too slow and far too many train stations do not have disabled access, and we need to, in order to make rail better for everyone, we need to make it friendly for people with mobility issues. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
I do agree with my honourable friend about the importance of accessibility at rail stations, and I note the case that he makes about Manchester Airport. I would also point out that in addition to the new line between Liverpool and Manchester that we've announced today going via the airport, there is over £100 million of funding going into Manchester Airport Station at the moment to lengthen the platform so we can have longer trains and more frequent services calling there. That's investment that's happening now.
Before I call the next speaker, can I just ask that people keep the questions very short, because otherwise we will not be able to get everybody in. So please help each other out. Conor Naismith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I begin by expressing sincere and enthusiastic thanks to the Secretary of State for the announcements today. I have been campaigning, and some would say badgering, ministers in my entire time in this place to address capacity challenges on the West Coast Main Line arising from the steaming pile of mess left to this government on HS2. So I welcome today's announcement that the government does intend to build a new rail line between Birmingham and Manchester. But following 14 years of mismanagement of projects like this, how can the Secretary of State assure me and my constituents that these projects will actually be delivered, and how will they be insulated against backwards, anti-growth, populist forces who we know would reverse these plans in a heartbeat?
Well said. We're going to give confidence to the public that when it comes to rail infrastructure, we're spending taxpayers' money wisely. We will learn the mistakes of HS2 and make sure that we do the work properly to start off with, so we're not wasting taxpayers' money in the way that the previous government did with their oversight of HS2.
Luke Charters.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. By my reckoning, York is the biggest winner of this new rail revolution. The new Haxby-York North Station, the York Station Master Plan upgrade, the TPRU route upgrade, and also the fantastic NPR new connections. Which of these does my right honourable friend delivers the most for my constituents?
I'm not entirely sure how to answer that question, Madam Deputy Speaker. He's been a fearsome advocate for his constituents, improving public transport in York and the surrounding areas. I was delighted when we could confirm that we were going to progress Haxby Station in his constituency at the spending review, and I look forward to working with him further to unlock the...
Elsie Blundell.
Madam Deputy Speaker,